I came here to be alone. I promised myself silence, isolation, a place to heal what the city had broken. That vow lasted exactly 3 days, because on the third day, I met her, and the quiet I was chasing became the empty space I couldn't wait to fill. The gravel crunched under my tires as I pulled into Willow Creek, the speck of a town tucked between endless pines and forgotten hills. I'd left the city behind, its blaring horns, crowded sidewalks, the echo of my ex's voice still sharp in my ears after she walked out without a backward glance. Dust swirled in the late afternoon light, coating the windshield like a fine silt. No rush hour here, no neon glow, just the hush of wind through dry grass, the isolation wrapping around me like a worn blanket. It felt right at first. Safe. Then I saw it, the general store on the edge of town. The sign hung crooked, weathered letters spelling out Creek's Corner, paint peeling like old skin. A faint light spilled from the window, warm against the cooling air. I told myself I wouldn't stop, but my foot eased off the gas. Something pulled, reluctant and magnetic, clashing with the vow I'd made on the drive. No connections, no complications. I parked anyway, stepped inside, and there she was, behind the counter, her presence steady as the oak floors. My heart quickened, unbidden. I didn't buy a thing that first day, just turned and fled the store, but the memory of her face, those steady gray eyes, followed me all the way back to the quiet I was chasing. The cabin sat at the end of a rutted dirt road, its boards warped from years of rain and neglect. I hauled my duffel bag up the sagging porch steps, the wood groaning under my weight. Inside, the air hung heavy with dust and the faint scent of pine sap from the walls. A single bed, a rickety table, a stove that looked like it hadn't been used in decades. Perfect. No distractions. Just me and the silence I'd craved. I unpacked slowly, folding clothes into the warped dresser drawers. Each item carried a piece of the city. My favorite scarf from that weekend in the rain with her, the notebook where I'd scribbled half-formed poems about love that turned sour. She had been everything. The late-night talks in our cramped apartment, the way her hand fit into mine during walks by the river. But isolation crept in, slow as fog. Arguments over nothing, her pulling away, me too scared to chase. Until one morning she was gone, leaving a note that said, "I can't breathe here anymore." The words still burned. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the empty room. This was my reset. No calls, no texts. I'd walk the trails, read by lantern light, let the quiet heal what the city had broken. Isolation wasn't new to me. It was my armor. In the urban grind, I'd hidden parts of myself. The ache for something real, the fear of being seen as too much, too queer in a world that sometimes stared. Here I could just be. Or try to. The first days blurred into a routine. Morning started with coffee brewed on the stove, black and bitter, sipped on the porch as the mist lifted from the valley. I'd hike the wooded paths behind the cabin, boots sinking into soft earth, the only sounds bird song and my steady breath. Afternoons meant chopping wood for the evenings, the axe thudding rhythmically, sweat beating on my skin despite the chill. I avoided the town center, sticking to the outskirts. People were risks. Conversations that might crack my resolve, eyes that might see too much. Healing felt close in those moments. The quiet let me breathe, let the knot in my chest loosen just a fraction. I'd sit by the window at dusk, watching shadows lengthen, journaling fragments of thoughts. The silence isn't empty. It's full of what I left behind. But supplies ran low fast. Canned goods from the drive were gone, and the cabin's well water needed filtering. Practical needs won out. I couldn't starve for the sake of solitude. On the third day, I drove back to the store. The engine rattled to a stop outside, and I lingered in the truck cab, gripping the wheel. Just in and out, no lingering. The bell above the door jingled as I entered. A sharp note in the still air. Shelves lined with jars of preserves, bolts of fabric, tools rusted from disuse. It smelled of aged wood and faint spices, comforting in its simplicity. She was there, restocking cans on a high shelf, tall, with shoulders broad from work, her flannel shirt rolled to the elbows, revealing forearms corded with muscle, dark hair pulled back in a loose braid, a few strands escaping to frame her face. She turned, eyes meeting mine, gray, steady, guarded like the town itself. "Afternoon?" she said, voice low and even, no warmth but no edge either. I nodded, throat tight. "Need some basics. Flour, coffee, maybe a few cans." My words came out clipped, echoing my resolve to keep distance. She moved behind the counter, ringing up items as I gathered them. Her hands were calloused, nails short and practical, brushing the counter with a quiet efficiency. There was strength there, subtle but undeniable, the kind forged from years of handling life's rough edges alone. We didn't speak beyond necessities. "That all?" she asked, bagging the goods. I paid, avoiding her gaze, but felt it on me, assessing. Something sparked, unspoken, a flicker of intrigue in the way she paused, as if weighing whether to say more. Her demeanor was a wall, but cracks showed, the slight furrow in her brow, the way her fingers tightened on the bag. I left with a nod, the doorbell jingling behind me. Back in the truck, the engine roared to life, but my pulse didn't settle. Unsettled. That's what it was. Why did her presence linger, like dust on my skin? I drove home, unpacked the groceries with mechanical motions, but questions swirled. The pull was magnetic, clashing with my vow. I was here to heal alone, not to chase shadows of connection. Yet, as I stirred soup on the stove, that night her gray eyes haunted the steam rising. Days passed in that fragile rhythm. Mornings on the porch grew routine, the coffee tasting sharper against the growing chill. I'd venture farther on hikes, leaves crunching underfoot, the isolation wrapping tighter. But the cabin stores dwindled again. Batteries for the lantern, thread for mending a tear in my jacket. Excuses, maybe. Practical needs, I told myself. The second visit came easier, or so I thought. The store was empty when I entered, sunlight slanting through dusty windows. She was at the back, wiping down shelves, her movements deliberate. "Back again," she noted, not turning fully, but there was a hint of recognition in her tone. "Yeah. Need lamp oil." I busied myself in the aisles, heart thudding unnecessarily. When I approached the counter, she met my eyes longer this time. "Settling in out by the old Miller place?" Her question hung, casual but probing. I hesitated, surprised she'd placed me. "Trying to. It's quiet." She nodded, ringing up the oil. "Quiet's what most come for. Stays that way if you let it." Her words carried weight, a subtle strength in their simplicity. Calluses caught the light as she handed me change, and I wondered what hands like that had endured, farming the stubborn soil perhaps, or holding on to something lost. I left with a murmured thanks, but the drive home felt different. The pull tugged harder, an unspoken intrigue blooming despite my barriers. Why her? The guarded way she moved, like she carried her own isolation as armor. It mirrored mine too closely, sparking questions I didn't want. By the fifth day, routine errands blurred into something more. I'd find myself lingering over a jar of honey or asking about the weather, small threads weaving despite my resolve. The town faded into the background, the dusty roads, the isolated hush, but she didn't. Each visit chipped at my solitude, turning necessities into excuses. I told myself it was harmless, just talk. But deep down, the magnetic draw grew, clashing with the healing I sought alone. One evening, as rain pattered against the cabin roof, I sat by the window, oil lamp flickering. The day's purchase, a simple loaf of bread, sat on the table. But it was her face I saw in the flames. Gray eyes, steady hands. The vow felt thinner now, stretched by an unexpected curiosity. Days passed, and the errands continued, each one pulling me back, despite everything. I told myself I was buying supplies, but the truth was that the trips had become less about need and more about a quiet, insistent want. The pattern started small, almost invisible at first. I'd drive into town every few days, telling myself it was just for milk or nails or whatever the cabin demanded, but the stops stretched longer each time. I'd linger by the shelves, fingers tracing the labels on jars of jam, the glass cool against my skin. She was always there, behind that worn counter, her flannel shirt hanging loose over her frame, the fabric soft from countless washes. It smelled faintly of wood smoke and earth when I got close enough to hand over my cash. One afternoon, I picked up a bag of flour for bread. The air in the store hung still, dust motes drifting in the slant of light from the window. "Making your own?" she asked, her voice cutting the quiet like a low rumble. I nodded, surprised she'd spoken first. "Trying. City's not big on from-scratch anything." She rang it up, her calloused hands moving with that steady rhythm, thumbs rough from gripping tools or reins or whatever, kept this place running. Those hands, they spoke of a life rooted deep, pulling sustenance from reluctant soil, mending fences against the wind. Her flannel sleeves were rolled back, exposing wrists marked by faint scars, like old rope burns. Grounded. That's what she was. The opposite of my floating drift through apartments and deadlines. She slid the bag across. Town's got a way of teaching that. Slow, but sure. Her eyes flicked up, gray holding mine for a beat longer than needed. I felt it then. A spark of shared rural anecdote, unasked. Grew up hearing stories about the creek flooding every spring. Folks here learn to bake through the wet seasons, when roads wash out. She said it casual, like weather talk, but there was a weight behind it. The town's history, layered like the silt in the riverbed outside. I murmured something about city floods being subways and traffic, and she let out a short huff. Not quite a laugh, but close. It warmed the space between us, pulling me in despite the knot in my gut. I left with more than flour that day. Her words lingered, stirring empathy I didn't want. Back at the cabin, I'd pace the creaky floorboards, the wood cool under my socks. Why did her hints at losses? Family farms gone under, winters too harsh. Hit so close? They mirrored my own fractures the way isolation had become my shield after she left. I fought it, that growing pull. Empathy meant opening cracks in my healing, letting in the mess of another person. I was here for solitude, for the quiet to mend my edges without interference. But her guarded strength, wrapped in that flannel armor, chipped at my resolve. It felt too familiar, too tempting. The visits, built like that, thread by thread. Next time, it was thread from my jacket. She noticed the tear as I paid. "Coyote got it?" Her tone was light, but her eyes scanned the rip with care. I shook my head. "Just a branch on the trail." She nodded, sharing another piece. "Trails here's full of 'em. Used to run 'em as a kid, chasing fireflies till dark." Her voice softened on the memory, a subtle vulnerability slipping through, like the way her fingers paused on the counter, calluses catching the edge. Losses hinted in the spaces, a town shrinking, folks leaving for brighter lights, her staying to hold the line. I found myself responding, mentioning city nights, chasing something similar but always coming up empty. The small talk wove us closer, rural anecdotes bridging the gap between my urban escape and her rooted life. Internally, I wrestled. Each drive back, the engine's hum matched the churn in my chest. Growing empathy scared me. Fears of disrupting the solitude I'd built, brick by emotional brick. The cabin's quiet was my sanctuary. The hikes, my therapy. Letting her in meant risking that, inviting the chaos of connection. But the pull grew, magnetic and insistent, her flannel-clad presence symbolizing a groundedness I craved without admitting. Then came the quiet afternoon that shifted everything. The store was empty, sunlight pooling on the oak floors like spilled honey. I was buying candles, the wax scent mixing with the store's earthy air. She leaned on the counter, braid falling over one shoulder, watching me count out change. Our eyes met across the space, gray locking on mine, steady and searching. Time stretched. The air thickened, heavy with unspoken tension, like the hush before a storm breaks. My heart thudded, skin prickling under my shirt. She didn't look away first. Neither did I. It was electric, that linger, pulling at something deep and unnamed. I broke it eventually, grabbing the bag and mumbling a thanks. Outside, the sky had darkened, clouds rolling in from the hills. The drive home felt charged, wind whipping the truck. That night, thunder rumbled distant, rain starting as a patter on the roof. By morning, the storm hit full, sheets of water lashing the windows, roads turning to mud. I needed feed for the wood stove, or so I told myself. But as lightning cracked, I knew the real pull. Back to the store, to her, forced into something longer than small talk. The storm outside was nothing compared to the one brewing in my chest, and I drove toward it, accepting the chaos I had tried so hard to outrun. The rain hammered the truck's roof like fists on tin as I pulled up to the store. Mud sucked at the tires, the wipers slashing futilely against the downpour. Lightning forked across the sky, illuminating the crooked sign in stark white. I dashed through the sheets of water, collar pulled high, but by the time I reached the door, I was soaked, shirt clinging cold to my skin, hair plastered flat. The bell jangled, sharp, cutting through the roar outside. She looked up from the counter, her braid damp at the ends, as if she'd been out checking the pumps. Gray eyes widened just a fraction, taking in my dripping state. "Roads are flooding already," she said, voice steady over the storm's growl. "Might be stuck here a bit." I nodded, water pooling at my feet on the oak floor. Just need some kerosene. Stove's acting up. Lies, mostly. The real need was warmer, pulling me through the gale. She moved to the back shelves, grabbing the can without a word. Thunder shook the windows as she rang it up, the light flickering once, twice. Paying felt awkward. Coins slick in my palm. "You got a place to wait it out?" she asked, glancing at the sky. Through the glass. It was black out there, wind howling like it had a grudge. I shrugged. "Cabin's a mile off. Not walking that in this." She paused, fingers drumming the counter. Calluses rasping soft against wood. "Back room's got a fire going. Warmer than dripping here." It wasn't an invitation, exactly. More a fact, offered plain. But the magnetic draw tugged harder in the storm's grip, clashing with my solitude. I should have said no, hunkered in the truck till it passed. Instead, I followed her nod toward the door behind the counter. The back room smelled of dry wood and faint coffee, a small space cluttered with crates and an old desk. A wood stove crackled in the corner, flames licking iron, casting shadows that danced on the walls. She added a log, sparks popping up the flue. "Sit," she said, gesturing to a worn armchair by the fire. I sank into it, the heat seeping through my wet clothes like a slow thaw. She dragged over a stool, settling across from me, flannel shirt sleeves pushed up, revealing those scarred forearms again. Silence settled first, thick as the rain on the roof. The fire popped, embers glowing red. I watched the flames, feeling the pull of her presence, guarded, but close now, the air between us warmer than the stove. "Storms like this take the power sometimes," she said finally, breaking the hush. "Town goes dark. Folks huddle." I nodded, rubbing my hands together. "City storms just mean traffic. Lights stay on, but everything feels louder." My voice came out softer than intended, the isolation of the city creeping back in words. She stared into the fire, gray eyes reflecting the orange flicker. "Louder is not always better. Quiet, here's what kept me." Her tone dipped, a hint of something deeper. The storm raged on, wind rattling the door, stranding us in this pocket of warmth. I shifted, the chair creaking. "Kept you how?" It slipped out, curiosity overriding caution. She poked at the logs with an iron, sparks flying. "Family had the store before me. Dad ran it till the accident. Tractor rolled on the hill road. Ma followed a year later. Heart gave out from the grief." Her words hung heavy, like silt settling in still water. I could have sold, left like the others. But this place, it's what stayed after everything else went. Parallels hit me then, sharp as the thunder. My escape from the city, chasing quiet after loss. Her staying, rooted in tragedy. "Sounds like running in place," I said, voice low. I came here to outrun mine. X left. Took the air out of everything. City felt like a cage after. Crowded, but so alone. She met my eyes, the firelight softening her features. Alone's a choice sometimes, or what's left. No pity in her tone, just recognition. The vulnerability cracked open, subtle, her shoulders easing a fraction. The room felt smaller, heat building. She stood, crossing to a kettle on the stove. Coffee? Steam rose as she poured, dark and steaming into 2 mugs. She handed one over, our fingers brushing, hers rough and warm, mine chilled and trembling slightly. The touch lingered a beat. Too long. Electric in the fire's glow. Skin against skin, callous grazing knuckle. My breath caught, the closeness pulling like gravity. I took the mug, cradling it, the ceramic hot against palms. Thanks. Sipped, bitter and grounding. We sat again, closer now, the fire's warmth shared like a secret. City isolation's different, I said, opening the door wider. Noise everywhere, but no one sees you. Not really. I'd walk those streets, feeling invisible, hiding who I was, the parts that didn't fit the rush. Here, the quiet. It's letting me rediscover that. Pieces of myself I buried under the chaos. She nodded slow, mug steaming between her hands. Quiet strips it down, shows what's real. Her gaze held mine, steady. But outsiders, they bring storms of their own, disrupt the guard you've built. I've seen it. Folks come, stir things, then leave the mess. The admission cracked her barrier, raw in the firelight. Fear laced her words, not of the weather outside, but the one that might blow through her world. Gray eyes searched mine, vulnerable for the first time, flannel shifting with her breath. Staying alone keeps it simple, no one to lose again. I felt it then, the emotional wall thinning between us. My own fears mirrored hers, solitude as protection, connection as risk. The brush of hands echoed, warmth spreading beyond the drink. Maybe, I said softly. The quiet's big enough for 2, if you let it. Thunder rolled distant, the storm easing to a steady drum. We talked more, voices low over the crackle, her losses in the town's slow fade, my fragments from the city grind, vulnerabilities shared like logs to the fire, building heat. Her laugh came once, short and real. When I described urban adventures gone wrong, the air thickened, not with tension now, but possibility. Hours passed, the rain softening to a patter. She stood, peering out the back window. Clearing up, roads should hold. But as I rose, reluctant, she added, come back when you need, not just for supplies. Deliberate, her invitation hung, eyes holding mine. I nodded, heart thudding. The drive home was slick, mud yielding under tires, but the storm inside me raged on, pull stronger. Barriers cracking. Visits would intensify now. No excuses needed. The cabin felt emptier that night. Fire in the stove, no match for the one we'd kindled. Her touch lingered on my skin, calloused and warm, pulling me toward something I couldn't name yet. Morning brought blue skies, puddles steaming in the sun. But the invitation echoed, deliberate chats waiting. I resisted a day, chopping wood till my arms ached, sweat mixing with resolve. Yet by afternoon, the truck rumbled back, not for need, but want. She was at the counter, smile faint but real. Coffee? She asked. No questions. We talked longer each time. Town trails she'd mapped as a kid, my city escapes to rooftops for stars, invitations woven. Walk the creek tomorrow? Her voice casual, but eyes intent. The guarded world opened cracks, my solitude blending with hers. Physical closeness grew, shoulders brushing in the aisles, hands steadying a fallen jar. Each touch healed a fraction, magnetic draw turning to something deeper. One evening, as dusk fell, she closed early. Join me on the porch? We sat, legs dangling off the store's edge, wind carrying pine scent. Her flannel sleeve grazed my arm, warmth seeping through. Vulnerabilities spilled easier now, her fear of the town's insularity trapping her, my dread of love's echo pulling me back to pain. You're not like the others, she said, voice soft. You see the quiet, not just pass through. I turned, our faces close, breath mingling. The pull was undeniable, emotional barriers crumbling like wet earth. Storm cleared, but the real one brewed. Invitations to chat, turning to shared silences. Full of promise. The invitations lingered like smoke after the storm. I tried to pull back. Hard. Woke up that first morning after, with the cabin walls closing in. The quiet too full now. Her words echoed. Come back when you need. But need what? More than coffee. More than talk. I chopped wood till my hands blistered, the axe biting deep into logs, sweat stinging my eyes. Distance. That's what I needed. To mend alone. Without her gray eyes pulling at the threads I'd just started weaving back together. 2 days passed without the truck rumbling toward town. I cooked from cans, hiked farther into the pines where the air thinned and sharp. The solitude wrapped tight again, a familiar ache. But at night, lying on the thin mattress, the sheets cool against my skin, her touch ghosted my fingers. Calloused warmth from that mug handover. I shifted, heart thudding uneven, craved it, despite everything. The healing felt fragile, cracked by her presence. I couldn't risk more. By the third day, the pull won. Batteries low for the lantern, I told myself. Practical. The store's bell jangled as I entered, dust settling on my boots. She was at the counter, sorting nails into bins, her flannel shirt tucked loose at the waist. Those hands, rough, steady, paused when she saw me. Missed a couple days? She said, voice even, but her eyes flicked up, holding mine a beat longer. Yeah, busy settling. I grabbed the batteries quick, avoiding the aisles where we'd lingered before. Paid fast, coin clinking cold on wood. But as she bagged them, something rustled inside, a folded note, slipped under the pack. I didn't look till I was in the truck, engine idling rough. Her handwriting, simple loops. Coffee tomorrow, counters always open. E. For her name, I guessed. Eleanor? No, she hadn't said. The paper crinkled in my grip, heart slamming ribs. Initiation from her. The guarded one reaching out. I drove home slow. Note, burning in my pocket. Tried ignoring it. Burned dinner that night. Smoke curling thick. The stove's heat no match for the churn inside. Distance meant safety. My solitude intact, her world untouched. But the craving gnawed, sharp as hunger. By dawn, resolve frayed. The truck keys weighed heavy in my hand. I returned at noon, sun high and harsh on the gravel. She poured 2 mugs without asking, steam rising dark and bitter. Figured you'd show, she said, sliding one over. The counter between us felt smaller, wood worn smooth from years of hands like hers. We talked easy at first. Town gossip, the way the creek ran high after rain. Her laugh came low, a rumble that shifted something in me. Leaning close over the coffee, her braid swung forward, brushing the edge. I caught the scent. Earth and faint soap. That led to the walk. Trails behind the store, she said after, rinsing mugs with water that splashed cool. Clear now. Want to see? Her invitation hung casual, but eyes intent, gray pulling me in. I nodded before thinking. Failed avoidance again. We stepped out, boots crunching gravel, then soft earth as the path wound into woods. Pines towered, needles whispering overhead, the air thick with resin. She pointed out markers, a bent birch from a fallen tree, a stump where deer bedded. Her voice wove stories, low and steady, hands gesturing broad. The trail narrowed, branches tugging at my sleeves. She steadied me once, palm firm on my elbow. Calluses, grazing skin, warmth seeping through fabric. I froze a second, breath catching. The touch healed something small, an old wound from city nights alone. We emerged at an overlook, town sprawled below like scattered stones. Tension rose then, sun dipping low, painting hills gold. I turned to her, words bubbling up. This place, it's more than I expected. Close now, faces inches apart, her breath mingling with mine, warm and quick. Her eyes darkened, hand lifting almost to my cheek. You pull at things I keep buried. Near confession, hanging electric. But fear flashed, mine of losing the quiet I'd clawed for. hers of outsiders shattering her guard. We pulled back, mutual, steps retreating on the dirt. "Not yet," she murmured, voice tight. The sunset bled red, but the moment hung unfinished, pulling tighter. Back at the store, laughter came easier after. Small-town quirks, how the postman delivered mail to wrong boxes, or the way cats claimed porches like kings. She'd huff, shoulders shaking, and I'd join, the sound light in my chest. Touches multiplied, healing glimpses, her fingers brushing mine over a shared apple from the bin, juice sticky and sweet, or steadying a ladder as she reached high shelves, my hand on her waist, flannel soft under palm. Each one mended a fraction, warmth spreading like sunlight through cracks. But complications brewed. A week in, phone signal flickered at the cabin, rare, but enough. It rang sharp one evening, lantern light pooling yellow. Her voice on the line, my ex. "Heard you're off grid. Miss me yet?" Laughter, edged sharp. The past resurfaced, words tumbling, how she'd left because I clung too tight, my isolation pushing her away. Heart thudded heavy, doubts flooding. Budding trust with the storewoman felt fragile now, tested by echoes. I hung up, phone clattering to the table, silt of old pain settling thick. I skipped visits again, harder this time, hiked alone, trails blurring wet with unshed tears. Craved her coffee, her steady presence, but fear won, past calling me back to safe walls. The cabin's silence mocked, empty without her laugh. 2 days stretched, ache building. Then the truck turned anyway, failed resolve crumbling. She was waiting, note from before, still in mind. Walk again? No coffee this time, straight to the path. Tension simmered higher, words sparse, but charged. At the overlook, sunset deeper orange, I tried distance once more. This can't keep pulling me. But her hand found mine, calloused fingers lacing tight. It already has. Near confession again, lips close, breath warm on my neck. Fears pulled us back, mutual shadows of loss. Yet the touch lingered, healing deeper. Laughter broke through later, over a quirk, the store's creaky floorboard that tripped every newcomer. She demonstrated, foot-catching, deliberate, tumbling light into my arms. We steadied, bodies close, her flannel against my chest. Heartbeats, sinking thud. Wounds eased, old isolations softening in the warmth. The phone call haunted, though. That night, alone, I paced. Wood floor, cold. Trust tested. Could I blend worlds without breaking? Her budding faith in me, fragile as new shoots. Another cycle. I attempted pullback, skipping for supplies from a farther town. Roads winding rough. Craving clawed. Her gray eyes the way her braid swung when she turned. Back home, emptiness hit harder. Healing stalled. Resolve snapped by noon next day. She initiated, bolder. A jar of preserves left at the cabin door. Note tucked. Taste of here. Coffee after? I went. Counter warm with her presence. Talk turned intimate. Town's quirks, hiding deeper pains. Laughter over the one-eyed dog that guarded the store. Her hand on my knee under the stool. Touch, electric. Healing rushed, wounds closing in the contact. Past intruded again. Ex texting fragments. Come back. We were good. Doubt twisted. Trust straining. I confessed bits to her over the walk. Voice breaking on the trail. Afraid I'll run like she did. Her arm around me. Flannel rough on my shoulder. Stay. We build slow. Tension peaked at sunset. Confession hovering. I want this. You. Lips brushed almost, pulled by fears. My solitude lost, her guard down. Backed off, but hands clung. Cycles spun. Try distance. Fail to craving. Intimacy, building, layer by layer. Touches healed. Fingers tracing scars on her wrist. Mine, shared stories, mending. Laughter echoed freer. Quirks binding us. But the calls shadow tested. Trust wobbling. Then, one evening walk, tension, crested, overlook bathed in fading light, her hand in mine. Tight. Can't keep fighting this. Near words, but fears yanked. Mutual, deep, pulled apart, hearts thudding. Complication peaked with another call, ex's voice pleading. I silenced it, but doubt lingered, trust frayed. Back at the store, she saw it in my eyes. "What pulls you away?" Her question soft, hand on my arm. I hesitated, then spilled. "The past. The fear." She nodded, gray eyes steady. "Mine's deeper. Reveals tomorrow. If you come." Transition sharp, secret looming, stakes rising emotional, pulling us toward crisis. The cycles wore me, but intimacy rooted. Impossible to uproot now. Her flannel scent clung to my skin, healing and complicating in equal measure. The next morning came heavy, sunlight, slicing through the cabin's thin curtains like a blade. Her words, from the evening before, clung to me. "Mine's deeper, reveals tomorrow." The note she'd slipped with the preserves sat crumpled on the table, ink smudged from my restless fingers. I paced the floorboards, their creak echoing the twist in my gut. Obsession. That's what it was now, this pull that dragged me back day after day, her gray eyes and calloused hands weaving into my every thought. The solitude I'd chased felt like a lie, cracked wide by her quiet strength. I couldn't keep circling. Try fail. Intimacy, building only to fray at the edges. Confrontation burned necessary, hot as the stove's embers. By noon, the truck bumped into town, dust kicking up behind. The store's doorbell jangled sharp, too loud in the midday hush. She was at the counter, sorting bolts of fabric, her flannel shirt sleeves rolled high, forearms flexing with each fold. The air smelled of fresh linen and faint earth from her boots. She looked up, gray eyes steady, but something flickered. Anticipation. Maybe fear. "Back," she said, voice low, setting the cloth down. I gripped the counter's edge, wood rough under my palms. "We need to talk. About this." My words tumbled out, raw. "The walks, the coffee, the way you look at me. It's not just talk. I can't stop thinking about you. Obsessed, even. The attraction, it's there, unspoken, pulling me like nothing else." She stilled, hands pausing mid-motion. The fabric slipped from her fingers, pooling soft on the wood. Her face tightened. Guarded walls, slamming up fast. "You shouldn't say that." Voice even, but edged now, like gravel under tires. "Why not?" I pressed closer, heart thudding against my ribs, the space between us shrinking. "It's real. I came here to be alone, but you, your hands, your stories, I feel it every time." She stepped back, crossing her arms over her chest, flannel bunching tight. "This town's insular. Folks here don't take to outsiders stirring things. And me? I've been down that road. Heartbreak twice over. Lost someone to the quiet, then the leaving. Can't risk it recurring. Not with you passing through." The withdrawal hit like cold wind, her gray eyes dropping to the floor. I felt the sting, sharp in my chest. "Insular? That's an excuse. We're already stirred. The touches, the laughs, they heal something in me." She shook her head, braid swinging heavy. "Healing's solitary here. My protection's this place, these walls. Yours is escape, running from city ghosts. We expose wounds like that, they bleed fresh." Argument flared then, voices rising over the store's hush. "My isolation's escape, yeah, from a love that choked me, left me hollow. But yours? It's chains, protecting from what? More loss?" I gestured wide, shelves blurring in my heat. "You stay guarded, but I see the cracks. The way your hand lingers, your eyes hold. It's protection, sure, but it traps you too." Her jaw clenched, calluses whitening on her crossed arms. "Traps keep out the hurt. You burst in, all city fire, and what? Blend worlds, town watches, whispers. Heartbreak recurs when outsiders leave, taking pieces. I won't." The words exposed us raw. My escape laid bare, her protection a fortress built on silt and grief. Wounds hung between, aching visible. I stepped closer, magnetic pull undeniable, the air thickening hot. Her breath quickened, matching mine, body's inches now. Heat radiated from her flannel, the faint scent of wood smoke and sweat. My hand lifted, fingers brushing her arm, tracing the scar on her wrist, rough skin under my touch, electric. She didn't pull away, eyes locked, gray, stormy, lips parting, soft. Tension crested, physical draw pulling us in. I leaned, her face tilting up, breath warm on my cheek. Almost kiss hung, lips brushing featherlight, hearts slamming sync. Her hand rose to my waist, flannel crumpling under grip, calluses pressing firm. Time slowed, the store fading. Shelves, counters, all gone in the heat. Then, interruption, shattered. The bell jangled, violent, door banging open. A farmer burst in, raincoat dripping from a sudden squall outside, voice booming. "Eloise! Need that feed quick! Storm's turning!" He stomped forward, oblivious, boots thudding oak. We sprang apart, her hand dropping fast, face flushing under the braid. I stepped back, pulse roaring, the almost touch burning phantom on my skin. She turned to him, voice steadying. In the back. "Give me a minute." He nodded, rummaging shelves, the moment shattered cold. I slipped out as he paid, truck engine roaring to life under gathering clouds. The drive blurred, mud slicking the road, my chest tight with turmoil. Internal storm raged, rediscovering love, this pull to her, worth risking the solitude I'd built. The cabin's quiet welcomed me, but felt hollow now, walls mocking the empty space beside the bed. Her lips' ghost lingered, soft and near, clashing with fears. Solitude healed, slow, safe. But her? She stirred life, messy and real. Questions churned. Was the rediscovery worth the shatter? The obsession deepened, not eased. Days stretched after, time apart heightening the longing. I avoided town, hiking trails alone, pines whispering her name in the wind. Nights, the mattress dipped. Empty, her flannel scent imagined on the sheets. Craving clawed, gray eyes, steady hands. The cabin's isolation mocked, healing stalled by absence. One evening, resolve cracked, reconciliation attempt brewed, pivotal now, back to the store, demands for truth. The truck keys waited, heavy in my palm, pulling me toward her despite everything. The sun dipped low that evening, painting the hills in bruised purples as I turned the truck onto the familiar gravel stretch. Store closing time. I'd timed it deliberate, the engine's rumble matching the thud in my chest. Longing had built unbearable over the days apart, her almost kiss ghosting my lips, the interruption's cold snap echoing in every quiet moment at the cabin. I couldn't wait longer. Reconciliation demanded now, raw and unfiltered. The bell jangled soft as I pushed inside, the door creaking on its hinges. Shadows stretched long across the oak floors, shelves half-shadowed, the air thick with the day's fading warmth, earth and spice lingering. Eloise was at the counter, wiping it down with a rag, her braid loose now, strands framing her face in the dim light. Flannel shirt untucked, sleeves still rolled, calluses catching the cloth's weave. She looked up, gray eyes widening just a fraction, then steadying. "Closing soon," she said, voice low, but no edge. The rag paused, water dripping slow from its edge. "I know." I stepped closer, counter no barrier now, my hands gripping the wood tight, knuckles whitening. "But we need this. Honest talk. No more circling, no more pulls and backs. What happened the other day? It's not nothing. I can't pretend anymore." She set the rag down, deliberate, folding her arms loose, but her shoulders tensed, flannel shifting with the breath she held. The store hushed around us, wind tapping the windows like impatient fingers. "You shouldn't have come back, not like this." Too late. My voice cracked, raw from the ache. "I'm here, obsessed, drawn, whatever you call it. That almost, your hand on me, your eyes, it bridged something. But you pulled away. Why? The town's insularity, your fears. Tell me straight." She exhaled sharp, turning half away, gaze dropping to the floorboard's grain. Silence stretched, heavy as silt in the creek. Then slow, she spoke. "Past love, lost her to this isolation. She came like you, outsider, full of city light. We built quiet here, walks like ours, touches in the back room. But the guard, it wore her down. Town whispers, my walls too high. She left one winter, said the quiet choked her. Took my heart with her, left me hollow, fears repeating. That's the deep secret. With you, an outsider again, blending worlds, it'd shatter me twice." Her words hung, vulnerability cracking wide, gray eyes glistening now, unshed. Tears welled, one tracing slow down her cheek, catching the light. I felt mine rise, hot and sudden, the shared pain mirroring mine. The ex is leaving, the isolation I'd fled. I get it, I whispered, rounding the counter, space closing. My escape was running from that same choke, but this, us, it's not repeat. It's rediscovery, healing together, not alone. She shook her head, but didn't step back, tears falling freer now, dampening her collar. Can't risk the shatter. Voice broke, raw, her hand lifting hesitant to wipe her face, calluses rough on skin. I closed the gap, arms wrapping her waist gentle, pulling her in. She stiffened first, then melted, embraced tight, her body warm against mine, flannel soft, heartbeat thudding sync with my own, tears mingled, salt on cheeks as we held, vulnerability bridging the divide like roots, twisting deep. We heal, mutual, I murmured into her hair, scent of earth and pine filling me. Your guard, my solitude. They blend, not break. She pulled back just enough, eyes searching mine, gray stormy, but softening. Mutual, yeah. Her hand cupped my face, thumb tracing my jaw, calloused but tender. The rediscovery hit then, lips meeting slow, sealing the commitment. Soft at first, tentative, then deeper, her mouth warm and yielding, breath mingling hot. My fingers tangled in her braid, pulling closer, the kiss tasting of tears and promise. Fears faced together in the store's hush. We broke apart breathless, foreheads touching, her hand still on my cheek. Stay, she whispered, voice steady now. Joint life here, you and me, blending. Your city stories in my trails, my quiet in your healing. I nodded, heartful, plans hinting solid. Mornings sharing coffee on her porch, evenings walking the overlook hand in hand, worlds weaving slow. The town's insularity? We'd face it, her strength mine now? My solitude. Transformed, not lost. Final reflections washed over me as we stood there. Embrace, lingering, the arc from isolation's cold grip to this warmth. Emotional payoff in her gray eyes, holding steady. The pull had won, tying us in quiet strength, leading to the healed life ahead. The last store visit shifted everything that spring. What started as reluctant stops evolved into home. Her counter, my anchor. The back room, our shared space. Fire crackling nights as we talked futures. Eloise's hand in mine felt right now. Calluses, a map of our blended worlds. Isolation healed, not in solitude, but this quiet strength between us. Love rediscovered in the town's hush. If this story resonated, pulling at your own unexpected connections, hit subscribe for more Sapphic tales of vulnerability and rediscovery. Tell me in the comments, what's the quiet place that changed you? Don't forget to like if authentic queer journeys like this speak to you. Let's build this community together.